Thank you for joining Wars of the Roses, and in the following video we're going to be discussing Solomon and the Everlasting House. Taken from the Student's Monthly Letter by Manly P. Hall, September 1937. Solomon and the Everlasting House. Dear friend, those who have carefully studied the books of the Old Testament realize that the great part of the text is devoted to genealogy and to historical episodes of comparative little importance. Most of the characters appearing in the Old Testament histories are not preserved in the profane annals of nations. A comparison between the Bible and other sacred texts of the world reveals that most of the scriptures contain rambling and pointless pseudo-histories. The various commentaries to the Vedas, the most celebrated of Hindu sacred writings, indicate that certain metaphysical truths are concealed under these so-called genealogies. Every Sunday school pupil has struggled with the begats. The time expended in memorizing these amounts to little better than waste. If, however, we translate the proper names and interpret these sequences correctly, we can discover many interesting things far beyond the ken of the average Sunday school teacher. The most important commentaries upon the Old Testament are those which have their foundations in the teachings of the Kabbalah. These commentaries reveal the most profound Jewish scholarship. They are enriched with tradition and a certain instinctive grasp of values peculiar to the people and culture. The rabbis pondered every symbol and every character of the scripture. They extracted a rare and beautiful metaphysical tradition, which, unfortunately, has never found its way into the textbooks of Christendom. This present section is devoted to the interpretation of the account of the building of Solomon's temple, given in the first book of Kings. The story begins with chapter 5 and continues through chapter 9. For the most part, it is taught that this is a true historical account of the actual building of a temple fashioned from rock and wood and ornamented with gold and precious stones. If subjected to analysis, however, it becomes apparent, as in the case of Noah's Ark, that we are dealing not with a historical fact, but a symbolical fact. It is difficult to determine with accuracy at this late date the origin of the story of Solomon's temple. It is most probably derived from Egypt, as was the tabernacle in the wilderness. The architecture generally associated with the temple is Babylonian and Chaldean. It is probable that several races and cultures contributed to the symbolism. The story of the building of the temple is briefly as follows. After the death of his father, David, Solomon became king of the territories of Israel. The dearest of Solomon's friends was Hiram, king of Tyre, with whom Solomon engaged in philosophical discourse. Hiram reminded Solomon that David had desired to build a temple to the everlasting God. Hiram further offered his assistance in supplying logs and timber and skilled artisans. It therefore came to pass that in the 480th year after the children of Israel had came out of the land of Egypt, the building of the temple commenced. From the dimensions given in 1 Kings chapter 6, it is evident that Solomon's temple was of no great size. It was not much larger than the average modern home, and it is difficult to imagine that 70,000 men bore burdens and 80,000 hewed wood in mountains, with 3,300 overseers all laboring together for 7 years to build this comparatively modest structure. If a cubit be the distance from the end of the finger to the elbow, about 18 inches, then the length of Solomon's temple was 90 feet, and the breadth of it 30 feet, and the height of it 45 feet. Something seems to be wrong in this picture. Various methods of determining the Jewish cubit have been attempted, but in all probability, the dimensions we have given are approximately correct. There might be a difference of a few feet. Of course, there were approaches to the temple, houses for the priest, chambers for storing sacred utensils, etc. But still there was a wide discrepancy between truth and popular opinion. The temple was built on Mount Moriah, one of the lowest hills in the cluster upon which the city of Jerusalem is built. There is still a flat rock called the Rock Moriah jutting from the top of this hill. Today a Mohammedan mosque occupies the site of Solomon's temple, and nothing remains of the original edifice except a few mutilated stone carvings, which may or may not be genuine. Solomon went to his friend, the king of Tyre, and asked that a clever workman be dispatched to superintend the casting of the vessels of the temple. In 1 Kings 7:13, it says that a cunning workman by the name of Hiram was sent out of Tyre. And then verse 14, he was a widow's son of the tribe of Naphtali, and his father was a man of Tyre, a workman of brass, and he was filled with wisdom and understanding, and cunning to work all works in brass. And he came to King Solomon, and wrought all his work. Da Costa and his Dionysian artificers declared that Hiram of Tyre was an initiated priest of the mysteries of Dionysius, one of the initiated order of architects that flourished in the ancient world, and continued down to the architectural collegium at Rome. This intimidated by the Bible statement that he was a man of wisdom and understanding, and a cunning workman in metals. That is, he was an initiate of the mysteries of fire, the only element that will work metals. The story of Hiram, called Our Father Hiram or Hiram Abiff, is the principal theme of the third degree of Blue Lodge Freemasonry. In fact, Freemasonry traces its original symbology to the three Grand Masters of the Lodge of Jerusalem, that is, Solomon, Hiram of Tyre, and Hiram Abiff. When we say that an account in the Bible may have a symbolical meaning, it does not necessarily mean that the account is entirely unhistorical. This is evident in the Masonic legend of Hiram Abiff. That a cunning workman by the name Hiram may have lived is not necessarily unreasonable, but it is certain that the legends have built up about the character which belong definitely in the classification of symbolism. Throughout the Bible, we may find mythology and history, fact and fable closely intertwined. Certain apocryphal legends sprung up around any outstanding personality. In fact, the legend may come in time to be more important than the man, when the ages have gently shrouded the truth in forgetfulness and obscurity. When we learn that it required 7 years to build Solomon's temple, we know we have discovered a key to the mystery. 7 is the most sacred of the numbers, associated of course with creative processes, with cosmogony and psychogenesis. In the 7th verse, 1 Kings chapter 6, it is written, "There was neither hammer nor axe nor any tool of iron had in the house while it was building." This was indeed a temple, building without sound of hammer or voice of workmen. In fact, this was the everlasting temple, eternal in the heavens. Josephus, the Jewish historian, was aware of the fact that the tabernacle in the wilderness was a symbol of the universe. This is also true of Solomon's temple in even more perfect measure. Solomon's temple. The upper figure shows the temple with the courtyards. The lower figure shows the temple proper with the porch in front, the inner courtyard, and G, the Holy of Holies. The name of Solomon may be divided into 3 syllables, Sol-Am-An. Each of these syllables is the name of a sun god or a divine principle. Sol means sun. Is the sacred syllable of the Vedas, the most magical of all intonations among the Hindus. And An is the name of the supreme being in Persia. The building of the temple was supervised by 3 men, Solomon of the sun, the source of life and power, Hiram of Tyre, the earth who supplied the materials, and a cunning workman, Hiram Abiff, the energies of space, the ethers, the dancing power of Bohat, the law of atoms. The 3 Grand Masters therefore symbolize the 3 powers which created the world. It requires 7 years to build the temple. That is, 7 periods or cycles are necessary to perfect the earth. The thousands of workers are the forces, energies, and atoms. The masters of the workmen are the laws of life, and the finished temple, so symbolically small, represents the physical universe itself, comparatively insignificant, but requiring for its creation and preservation the benevolent conspiracies of the innumerable forces that work in space. The creative triad, here represented by the 3 Grand Masters, is present in all the major theological systems of the world. The Trimurti in the caves of Elephanta in the harbor of Bombay depicts the principal god of the Hindus with 3 faces. These faces represent the creative, preservative, and disintegrative powers resident in divine energy. The 3 faces of Shiva, as the Trimurti is called in India, symbolizes the triform creative principle of life. All energies manifest through triads. These triads finally accomplish the building of the soul temple, that is, through the incarnation of creative agencies, life is gradually matured, brought to ripening, the ultimate perfection towards which all life is inevitably moving may be said to be the work accomplished by the 3 builders. The building of Solomon's temple takes place on several planes simultaneously. The solar system is a product of creative energies. Each of the planets is a house built in space. All the races and lives evolving upon the planets are likewise little temples built to manifest the will of the gods. All forms are houses of the soul. One spiritual principle is building all these houses, functioning through them, finally discarding them from other better houses and forever growing. The realization of this is a mood rather than an intellectual accomplishment. Man is the master builder. Each man is building the temple of his own character. He is building the body through which he must function. He is ennobling his emotions, refining his appetites, and improving his mind. Those who accomplish greatly in these endeavors are indeed master builders. They are building not houses of wood and stone, but temples fashioned without the sound of hammer or the voice of workmen. The whole motion of the universe is towards truth. Truth is growing up in everything, manifesting through all forms and nature. Truth, therefore, may be called the hidden good, the secret God who dwells in the temples that are built for it according to the law. In the story of Solomon's temple, we learn that the holy place and the most holy of holy places were sanctified to the service of the living God. The holy place of man is his mind, and the most holy of holy places is the heart. It is in the heart that the sacrament to consecration must take place. It is the small room that the whole temple is consecrated. It is in the heart of man that his life is made new. The Dionysian artificers concealed under the symbolism of architecture the secret and spiritual mysteries of the regeneration of man. They were truly divine architects. They were building not houses, but adepts. It says in 1 Kings that the cedars of Lebanon were cut down and were floated to Joppa to become the beams and the uprisings of the everlasting house. The cedars of Lebanon were not trees. There was a holy temple upon Mount Lebanon, as in the case of the Druids, whose name means the men of the oak trees. The initiates of Mount Lebanon were called trees or cedars. It was the wisdom of these men that supported the temple. Their knowledge was the beam, and wisdom the upright. Houses that endure are not built by men, for their substance is of this earth, but with the secret substances of wisdom and knowledge that shall endure all vicissitudes of physical existence. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment. And if you can, please consider donating towards the Rosies. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you very much.